If anyone has any questions, please you can unmute yourself and just ask the question live to Jonathan. But before we do that, I got a couple of questions for you, Jonathan. So I did some kind of prep work in terms of questions, and
Nice.
I thought it will benefit a lot of participants. Few of them who couldn't attend today's session, they shared some questions over to me, so that can help straight away. So the first question is, like, when you thought about Trustmix, and when you thought about like the different people involved in a property jigsaw, which was the one segment of, like, it's not about naming and shaming any segment, but which was the one segment wherein you found it really difficult, that it's very difficult to deal with this set of people or set of segment when it comes to, let's say, getting electrical work done or a plumbing work done or a construction site work done? Which was that one sector which you
Yeah.
really found painful?
So I would say tradespeople generally, and uh, I think it's because they're. I think that's more. I would approach that more from the adoption of bringing people into Trustmix, because it is an online platform and there are other platforms that exist specifically for finding tradespeople. So you have sites like Checker Trade and My Builder and Trust a Trader. So when I was having those conversations, I was finding that it's going to be a bit more of a challenge, shall we say, to introduce Trustmix to them. And whereas I was finding it was easier for people like property sources, for investors, and for brokers, for mentors and coaches. So yeah, I would say tradespeople, and then yeah, there's developers also. So because I think if you're a property developer, on average, you would say that they've been around the block already, and so maybe they've got their power team in place. Therefore, they might be less. They might think that they're like less interested in using something like Trustmix because they've already got this established power team. So it's requiring a little bit more understanding about the world of a property developer to really say, right, what can we offer that's going to be of value and usefulness to you? And I think that there is still very much a usefulness for property developers on Trustmix, because it's about if you need to search and find anyone, maybe you're branching out into a new area and you don't have certain people to do some services that you want them to. And okay, well, let's use Trustmix. Trustmix is the go-to place to do that. So yeah, I would say tradespeople and developers.
Thanks, Jonathan. The second question, we work with a lot of young people who have kind of completed their uni recently, and in the last 2 years, because of this pandemic, those young people have not actually got into a professional job. They are still living with their parents. Parents are very successful people and kind of really doing well, but it's really painful for them to see that their children have gone to good universities, done really good in their studies, but pandemic has really hit their career point of view. Now, if
Right.
those young people who want to get into property and they want to start their property journey, what recommendation you will give? Because you are a young entrepreneur who kind of have an experience of being an accountant, worked for a finance department, and also got into buying one or two properties and experiencing that
Sure.
journey and then building your startup. So I think it will good for, rather than it will be good to come from you. What recommendations you will give to a young person who's starting off?
Yeah, sure. So I think I can give a more like a generalized approach to property, because obviously I wouldn't say I've come straight out from uni and gone straight into property. I did go up the career ladder, and obviously that's afforded me more of a higher salary that hasn't able me to go through to the route I'm taking now. But in terms of someone first starting out, I would say the thing that I've seen over the last 12 months is going to as many networking events as you possibly can and read as many of the property books as you can, because it really gives you a core framework on all of the different strategies that exist, the pros and cons, and it just gives you that framework. Because I think the starting point is, well, if you've you're cash poor, but you've got the time, and sure, you've come out of uni, you've got a good head on you, what's the first route in typically I find is property sourcing, because it's something where, well, I can source properties, I can find properties, and then I can make 2,000 to 5,000 a time. But there is a lot of I think misconceptions in the property sourcing world, which is around compliance and professionalism and doing the right thing. It should be recognized more as a profession in its own right, but it's seen as sort of like the gateway to getting into property. It doesn't mean to say you can't do that. It's just it should be considered that it's more than it actually is. But yeah, I would say networking events, speaking to as many people, interacting with people that are at different levels, and then yeah, reading a bunch of books.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. So before I ask the third question, anyone from the participant, anyone wants to ask a question? Mazio, John, Manoj, anyone wants to ask a question, you can unmute yourself and ask questions straight to Jonathan. Yeah.
I don't have any question as such, but I think the idea is interesting, really interesting. So well, I'll ask a question to Jonathan. So Jonathan, in terms of the power team, would you have to individually choose and pick, or would there be like a package available for the whole power team? Say if you want to start a brand new project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it would be individual. It's not. It's like if you are on LinkedIn or Facebook and you search someone and you add them as a friend or a connection. It's very much on an individual basis, and it's a very good point though. Like that might be something that we consider. Maybe as it fleshes out and as we get some really good growth numbers, then there'll be people that maybe work well together, that from like it can be data driven, that will say that okay, these guys work quite well quite often. There's in addition to these guys that are more like geographically based in the areas that you're interested in investing in. So it's a great idea. It's something that I'll certainly write down and have a think about, because yeah, why not? If it's something that makes sense to do, then yeah.
Because why I thought about that question was, when I bought a property up north, it was trying to jiggle around with an electrician, with a plumber,
right.
all that. So I said, oh, if you get say the one team that covers everything, then you don't have to, like you said, you want to save people time, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Thank you for that. I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mazio. Thanks, Jonathan. The next question what we have is, where did you get the term Trustmix? So what?
Yeah, so I like the A3 idea I said about. I got a big A3 sheet of paper and I was trying to come up with names, and I even went to like wrote some Latin words and what certain meanings of various things, and try and sort of over engineer the whole process. And I came out with property mix, or property and mix, and that, and also it's in addition to what's available. So just when you get to a name, it's okay, what URL is available and what company's house limit, and I suppose that doesn't matter as much. So yeah, it's really just came about from that, and it was something that stuck. It was property mix, and then I changed it to Trustmix, because there is a bigger picture thing here, and this is very like down the line. If we can really deliver product market fit and be super useful for the property industry, you can go bigger in this whole trust ratings. That's just like what Trustpilot is, right? So that can exist for multiple, and I guess Trustpilot is a good example. So Trustmix can potentially go into that as well, in that it's more generic rather than property mix. But yeah, there's no real amazing story behind mix or trust. It was something that stuck after having a look at a lot of different questions. We were looking at Metro Tiles or Metro White.com, and it's like, well, why Metro Tiles? Are we a tiling company? But yeah. Sorry, there's not a sexy story behind that.
No, thanks, Jonathan. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking too, as you said, over engineering about the name.
Yeah,
I think I think a lot of time it's about just keeping it simple and getting the job done.
it does matter, and it also doesn't matter. It's like,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan. The next question I have is during this COVID season, last 2 years, as you mentioned, property is one industry which has done really well, but at the same time, the property industry had real challenges. Like supply chain management was impacted, prices went up, labor was an issue, a lot of project was delayed, and a lot of things happened. But at the same time, it was a booming time where property really kind of moved ahead. But so from a COVID point of view, in your story you have shared, in fact, the trust mix was the idea, like then making it a reality, starting off, and where you have reached. This has all happened through pandemic. So I think pandemic has been a true blessing for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So kind of, do you want to share a few things how you mentally you were able to keep your focus, keep that positive energy during pandemic, wherein there were so many things happening and media was bombarded with lots of challenges and negativity?
Yeah, good question. So I was splitting my time between Copenhagen and England. So I was really fortunate that my team was someone that I knew. It was a team that I knew. I suppose that didn't matter in some ways, but they were all based in Yorkshire. So it's not like we had to get and sit in an office and work on things together. We were able to pretty much build it completely remotely, which is completely different to, I think, how companies traditionally used to. It's used like people say back from the back of a garage or whatever. From like a mental, the networking, the online Zoom networking events that took place, and coupled with Facebook groups, the property Facebook groups, is just, you felt super connected. The only thing that really wasn't around, specifically on the property front, is being able to actually go to the live networking events and get out there and actually sit down. Like we were able to sit down and have lunch together, and that was great. But we were also able to connect, and we connected online. So yeah, in terms of like mentally, when you're, as you guys will probably know in work, when you're remote working, it's about that discipline, and it's trying to put in place these structures that help you to keep you moving forward. I've always feel like we're not moving forward fast enough, so there's a bit of that as well. But I have weekly Zoom calls with my team every Monday at 9 o'clock, and that allows us to go through our task management system. We use Jira, and we can just really monitor the project through as it goes. So it's just keeping regular communication is super important.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jonathan. I think you touched a lot of good points there. Anyone wants to ask any question? John, Aljo, anyone wants to ask any question? Robin? Yeah. So the next question: what's the future of Trustmix? How does it look like in the next 1 year, 6 months, 2 years? So what's the advantage for like the people who will be watching this after the recording also? What's your message for them in terms of what's coming up?
No, absolutely. So I've got sort of two core areas, which is to go out and raise investment so that I can build up my team, and I can really flesh out Trustmix in the best way possible, in a faster way, but also to just engage and build up the Trustmix brand to get as many people to sign up in property. And just as a measure, the largest property Facebook group that exists in the UK is All About Property, which is, I think, north of around about 55,000 people now. So that's my target. That's not going to happen in the next year. Maybe I should be more confident about that. But it's to get to the first 1,000, and then 2,000, and 5,000, 10,000. So right now, to lower the friction, it is completely free to sign up. It's really about, okay, that 3 to 5 minutes to sign up and create a profile. And then for others, and then my job is to create it so that others can search and find you, and you can search and find and connect with other people. So it's really about getting every single person to sign up as possible. And we're really looking about how to make that process as smooth as possible. And yeah, it's about value driven first. So the whole principle of Trustmix, and maybe it's because of I'm fortunate to be in a position where I don't need to work a 9 to 5 to pay the bills. I can focus a lot of my time on this, and I live a very sort of low cost, being an accountant. I'm able to focus on value driven rather than trying to stick a membership paywall in from day one to say, right, it's going to cost you this much to be a member. That will most likely come. And the way I've planned it is that it'll probably be at the moment around about 5,000 services and around about 5,000 investors, landlords, developers. We're currently north of 300. So obviously it depends if I can do my job well enough to get to that point quickly. But if we get to that number and still there's not being significant value being delivered to everyone, then well, that number is going to increase. It's going to be a point where I want to create that good dilemma where everyone's benefiting from Trustmix, and I'm going, hey, I'm picking up the hosting bill here. So okay, so it's then going to, and then we can say, okay, it's going to cost you this much a month, and yeah, I want you guys to say, well, yeah, sure, absolutely, I'll pay for that because I can see the benefits it's bringing me. So that's the real benefits. We're doing a thing where we're bringing in a badge system. So it doesn't bring in, because it's free, it's not like we can incentivize with financial discounts or anything, but there's a founding supporter badge. So for the first 1,000, you get a permanent badge on your profile. So you're a start. We are thinking about doing recommendation incentives, like giving away some prizes or books, an annual subscription to something, just so that we can try and incentivize people to get as many people on board. And yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what the next year looks like. Raising some investment and then building out the user base more as much as we can.
Thank you, Jonathan. And one question just came through now while you were sharing. Are you going to build like your entire focus and energy is going into Trustmix, and as you said, you do a job as well. But are you thinking of building a portfolio of property as well, and keep that title of being a property investor and developer?
Absolutely. And yeah, the change was the whole stick to what you know. And but I yeah, absolutely. So my focus is going to be on building out the property platform, and as that becomes revenue generating, then I'm going to definitely be I'm going to have a lot more knowledge and be very well sort of the whole network effect, and hopefully be using Trustmix myself to build out my own team. So yeah, 100%. Hopefully I can bring to fruition that drawing that I did when I was 12 or 13 in having properties around the world, and building out a property portfolio.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. Yeah. So on that note, I'll ask one more time. Robin, Lincoln, anyone else wants to have any question? This is your opportunity to have one-to-one with Jonathan. Anyone? Okay. So on that note, we'll conclude the Q&A session. I think we got some real valuable insight from Jonathan. And I think the questions were really helpful to understand a little bit more, like from a personal point of view, and kind of continuing this journey and our conversation.